Should you carry a backup gun? And which are the best backup guns? And if you do carry one, how should you carry the backup gun? Well, you're in luck, because today we're going to answer all your questions about backup guns. So buckle up. Hi everybody, welcome to LocaCarnivore. Glad you could join us today. Well, we're talking about backup guns. And we're going to answer the three big questions that people always ask me about backup guns. And at the end of the video, I'm going to give you my opinion as to what the best backup gun is. So make sure you stay with us all the way through. Another thing, if you wouldn't mind, please share this video. YouTube changed its algorithms a few months ago again. And as best I can figure, it's definitely impacting small channels that deal with content like I produce. And so you got to get the word out for me, frankly. It's the only way we're going to survive. So please do that. Please share this video. Let's help it go viral. Thanks. All right, the first big question that people are always asking me about backup guns is, should I carry a backup gun? Should you carry a backup gun? Well, the short answer is yes, if you can. If you're legally allowed to have that second gun, or maybe even a third gun, whatever it might be on you, if you're legally allowed to do that, by all means, you should be carrying a backup gun whenever possible or practical. And I've got several reasons why you should carry a backup gun. And the first big reason is guns malfunction. They can malfunction. Even a well-maintained gun that's fed proper ammo, just for whatever blind dumb luck, what I call BDL, blind dumb luck, just out of the blue, the thing hangs up in the middle of a fight. Stranger things have happened. Go ahead and go watch a lot of gunfight videos and stuff, like on Active Self-Protection or one of those channels, and you're going to see an actually fair amount of guns malfunction, especially in the hands of law enforcement officers, which you would think that wouldn't occur much, but it does. So it's a real thing. Guns can hang up, especially semi-automatics. Now, you revolver people are going, well, I've got a revolver. That thing's never going to jam. I'll tell you what, I've actually had revolvers malfunction. I've had a revolver actually skip a cylinder in fast double action fire, and instead of getting 6 out the barrel, only got 5, and that last one was a surprise because it would click on a dead cylinder. So, and that was in a match. So things can happen to you. Also, I've had other revolvers malfunction due to they got snow or ice or something in them. I mean, environmental factors play a big role in all of these sorts of things. So remember, you can be going bang, 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 and then oops, and now what are you going to do? And I'll tell you what, your immediate action drill, yeah, you should perform that, the tap, rack, bang, or whatever you've been taught. Give that a real quick go. Maybe that gun will start, your primary gun will start working again real fast for you. But I'll tell you what, if that doesn't get the problem solved, you're probably not going to have a lot of time to then start, taking the mag out and changing the mags and try and, figure out what the problem is. Because most likely bullets are flying your way. You're getting incoming fire. And if you can't find suitable cover while you do this, and of course while you're in cover and messing with your gun, your opponent or opponents, your assailants, could be maneuvering to get a better shot angle on you and possibly take you out. And this actually happened, for example, in the 1986 Miami shootout with the FBI. And I'm going to refer to this a couple times here in this video. So you might want to go get familiar with that. I'm not going to walk you through the details, but bottom line, 1986, the Miami, several FBI agents stopped 2 heavily armed bank robbery suspects in Miami, did a felony stop. Gunfight ensued. The thing lasted a long time. It was a good 10-15 minute gunfight. It was really protracted. And at the end of it, both of the suspects were killed, but not before one of the suspects killed a couple of agents, and all the other agents involved in this, there was, I don't remember how many, 5 or 6 or better, almost all of them were wounded. Many of them were wounded multiple times. So it was a real goat rope. It really was. And my point about the malfunctions, one of the FBI agents had a malfunctioning gun, and we're going to go back to that in a minute as to why it was malfunctioning, but he got so fixated on trying to fix the primary weapon that he and another agent lost situational awareness, which gave enough time for one of the suspects to maneuver and kill them both. So if your primary gun goes down and you can't get it running real quick, time to switch to plan B, and that's when you're going to need a backup gun. And we'll talk about the ins and outs of what a good gun is and what you should carry. We'll get to that later, but that explains why you should carry a backup gun. That's one reason why. And another reason why, beyond just a simple malfunction, you know, the gun hangs up for whatever reason, you might lose control of the gun. It might fall out of your hand for whatever reason. I mean, you could be in a hand-to-hand altercation or something and the gun gets knocked away. You could have the weapon taken away from you, and that's a whole nother kettle of fish. We're not going to go deeply into that, but it's possible. Or you could slip and fall. People, you know, like you're on ice or something, or snow, or bad footing, like in rural terrain or something, or even on the edge of a highway, you could fall off an embankment. There's all sorts of crazy things that happen to people. And when those things happen, often they let go of whatever's in their hand, or it could get knocked out of your hand, whatever. So you might drop or lose the gun. And just back to Miami, several of the agents, now this was bad tactics on their part, but it happens. Several of the agents actually put their primary weapons on their car seats while they were getting ready for this felony stop, because they wanted the guns out and ready to go. They were all in plain clothes, so they wanted to make sure that they had their gun ready and right at hand. Trouble was, when they used their vehicles to stop the suspect's vehicle, this collision was pretty severe. It was at a relatively high speed, and a lot of those agents lost their primary guns. They went flying off the seats down onto the floorboards of the car, and the bullets started flying almost immediately. They didn't have time to get down there and fish around for that gun, so they had to go to their backup guns. And luckily, most of them had a backup gun and were able to continue to return fire. But imagine if that happened to you for whatever stupid reason and you didn't have a backup gun. Now what you going to do? Well, guess what? You just brought your fists to a gunfight. Probably not going to work so well. And another big reason why you need a backup gun is your dominant hand with the gun could be put out of action. You could be wounded in the hand or the arm. And I'm telling you, it's not like Hollywood where you get the shoulder shot and the hero keeps on going and saves the day and everything. You get shot, especially if it does nerve damage, that bullet does nerve damage in your arm or your shoulder or wrist, anywhere like that, your hand's not going to function well. It probably won't be able to maintain a grip on the gun, let alone operate the gun. And this is very common in gunfights. The reason is, whenever you have a gun pointed at somebody, the human tendency under stress is to focus in on that point, the actual threat, and the gun is the perceived threat. And where do people's bullets tend to go? Where they are looking. And so everybody's fixated on your gun. The bullets are coming not just at you, but more specifically at that gun. Now back to Miami in 1986. The one agent who was killed, his gun malfunctioned because it was hit by one of the suspect's bullets. And it was put out of commission. But he didn't understand that in the stress of the situation, got fixated, as I said, on the problem. And unfortunately, it was a tragedy ensued after that, based on the fact he lost situational awareness. If he had had a backup gun and just put the primary down and gone to the backup gun, who knows? Things might have worked out differently for him and for the other agent who came to assist him. So again, be aware, you could easily have your primary hand and or arm put out of commission. Now you've got to use this hand, and the gun may have been put out of commission as well, or you dropped it, so you might have to use your offhand. That means you're going to need a backup gun somewhere. We're going to get to talking about access to the backup gun in a little bit, so stay with me on this. But that's the case for why you need a backup gun. Even if you are a civilian carrier, you're not carrying that primary gun just as jewelry. Well, you better not be. It's not a piece of jewelry. It's not a fashion accessory. It's a tool, a device designed to save your life, hopefully in the most extreme circumstances. And things get really weird in gunfights. So you need and should have a backup gun. All right, let's get into the meat of this on the hardware side. And let's talk about what you should carry, or what is a good backup gun. Now, most people, when they think backup gun, or you say that word backup gun, they envision something like this: a small revolver, or perhaps a small semi-automatic pistol. And that is true. Now, we're going to talk a little bit, though, we're going to go a little more in depth about this. Now, one of the first principles, regardless of what gun you carry, is that you should have the same action type. In other words, the gun should operate, your backup gun should operate the same way as your primary gun. Therefore, if you're carrying something like this, say a medium frame revolver, this happens to be a .357, you should carry another revolver as a backup, i.e., perhaps this small snubby, Smith & Wesson 642, something like that. And by the way, I did a video not too long ago about what the best snub-nose revolver is, in my opinion. I'll put the link down in the description. Go down and check it out. I think you'll find that very interesting. And I also did another video, just a shameless plug here, but I did another video about why revolvers are really making a comeback on the market these days. And I'll link that in the description. You can go check those two out. I think you're going to find those very useful, very informative. So as we said, you're going to want a gun with a similar action. So if you're carrying a revolver, you should carry a second revolver. Now there is one exception to that rule in my opinion, and that is even if you're carrying a revolver, you could make a case for carrying a striker fired gun as a backup, a smaller one or whatever you want. The reason is that it operates more or less like a revolver. Yeah, it feels different and all that, but as long as they point to the same point of aim, in my opinion, you could do this because the means of firing this gun is just simply pulling the trigger. There's no safeties to deal with or whatever it might be. So you could make a case for, if your primary gun is a revolver, you could carry a striker fire gun. Likewise, if you carry a striker fire gun as a primary, you could carry a revolver as a backup. This might be not the most appropriate, but a revolver, because your muscle memory for firing each gun is going to be pretty much the same. Although I still would suggest you stay with like kind to like kind. And particularly if you carry a 1911, I would recommend that you stay with another 1911 type gun. It might not be a full-size gun. It might even be like one of these small 380s or something. There's a number of them out there, but you want the same muscle movements and neural pathways that you would use to operate the primary gun. That means having a safety like a 1911, you'd carry it cocked and locked, etc. So especially if you're a 1911 person, do carry another 1911 type gun, in my opinion. And I'm not alone in this. Most police departments, their requirement for, that I know of, many of them at least, their requirement for backup guns for their officers is it must have the same basic principle of operation. Now another point to make is about your backup gun. Consider carrying a backup gun which takes the same ammunition as your primary gun. So if you're carrying, say, a 9mm semi-automatic, you might want to go with just a different 9mm semi-automatic. Say, this is a Glock 26, for instance, as opposed to going to a 380, because now you've got different ammunition. And the nice thing is, it sounds kind of trivial or whatever, but you never know what kind of situation you're going to end up in. So if you end up in a situation where you have to trade magazines or use the ammunition out of one gun and another gun for whatever reason, you've got that capability. Plus, you don't have to have two different types of ammo in stock, and you don't have to worry about two different recoil impulses and points of aim and all that sort of stuff, and or effectiveness. And another basic principle of backup guns is carry as large a gun as possible for a backup. And the reason is, ask yourself, with the backup gun that I selected, say this little 380, can I stay in the fight and prevail with this gun as well as I could with a larger gun, say chambered in a more powerful cartridge? Let's say you could go to a Micro 9 like this Glock 26, and there's a lot of the brands I mentioned. I don't have anything with them. I don't have any arrangements or anything. I'm not an influencer. This isn't an influencer video. Brands I mentioned are just in passing, basically, because I have a gun available to show you or something. But something about this size. Now this 380 holds 6 rounds. One up the pipe, you got 7, and it's a 380. So you're dealing with about 200 or so foot-pounds of energy, versus you could go to a Micro 9 like this double stack. Now you've got 11 rounds, almost twice the firepower, and it's a more powerful cartridge. You're now up in the 350 to 400 foot-pound range. So again, and it probably would take the same ammunition as your primary gun. So a very good idea. Ask yourself, could I stay in the fight with this backup gun? If the answer is, well, maybe, then, like you got this thing, you go, look at it, and you go, would I want to go through a whole gunfight with this gun, especially at maybe unknown ranges or whatever, especially if you're in law enforcement? Or would I want a gun that I could fight with and has reasonable ammunition capacity and reasonable power? So that's something you want to definitely consider. Most people think of backup guns as their primary gun went down for whatever reason, and it's very close and very desperate. And yeah, a small gun like this could help you out of that situation. But most often, that's usually not what has occurred. You still have the gunfight occurring at whatever range it started at, and now you need to continue the fight. So, and if it's a protracted fight, I think you would want something with a lot more ammunition on board and better power, and maybe a little easier to shoot. Now, another thing about backup guns when you're selecting them is consider just simply getting a duplicate or near duplicate of your primary weapon. So let's say your primary weapon is a 9mm pistol, like a medium or a full-size duty gun. This is a Glock 19, something of this size, or you could go, Glock 17, whatever. Consider either yet a second Glock 19, which it sounds like kind of overkill, but it's not really. And I'm going to show you in the next upcoming section on how to carry a backup gun, why you can actually go with two guns of the same size. At the very least, though, consider something that is basically the same gun, but a little more compact. So if you have a Glock 19 for a primary weapon, consider a Glock 26 as your backup. The guns are basically the same width, and the barrel's a little shorter and whatnot, but you still have good ammunition capacity, and the operation of the gun is going to be absolutely identical. They're going to point to the same place in your hand. Now let's talk about the truly small guns, what I call the mouse guns, for backup duty. And frankly, these guns, in my opinion, while they can be used as a backup, to me, backup guns, and we're going to talk about this a little more in the upcoming section on how to carry a gun, but they divide into two categories. And that is an immediate access gun and a deep concealment, or what you might call a hideaway gun. Now, if we're talking about a deep concealment gun, then the small guns make sense because you need to have a very small profile and very light weight for that gun, because it's probably going to be in an unconventional carry mode, which we'll discuss in a little bit. So you could do like a small revolver like this, or a small 380 or 32, something like that. Frankly, I wouldn't do a 22 or a 25. Rimfire semi-automatics are notorious for being unreliable. Plus, there's not a lot of power there. And 25, while it might be a touch more reliable, and yeah, the guns that they come in are temptingly small, but frankly, the power is no better than a 22, maybe even a little less. So depending on the situation, it may not be very effective for you. But if you want that hideaway gun, then especially if you're like in law enforcement or something and you're concerned about having your primary gun taken away from you by a suspect or an offender, then, and you're taken prisoner or something like that, then the hideaway has appeal, even for a civilian defender. I mean, you could have the same situation. It's a kidnap attempt or something, and somehow the kidnappers get your primary gun away from you, but they're not very bright and they don't search you very thoroughly. You could have a backup weapon ready. It's hidden very deeply. You might have to fish it out, yes, but then that's where the small guns come into play, in my opinion. Well, thanks for sticking with us this far in the video. Appreciate it. Hey, while you're at it, do give us a big like, hit that thumbs up button. Like the video for us. We want you on the LocaCarnivore team, so please subscribe. And don't forget to ring that notification bell so you don't miss any of our great videos. By the way, we do also have a Patreon. We'd appreciate your support. I'll put the link in the description. And go over to our website, LocaCarnivore.com. We've got other content for you. And if you hit the store tab right at the top of the screen there, you can get some of this LocaCarnivore merchandise. Really terrific idea, and we do appreciate every bit of support you give us. Thank you. Let's have a brief discussion about how to carry a backup gun. And again, backup guns divide, and how you carry them divide up into two categories, in my opinion. The first category is an immediate access weapon. That has to be readily available, and you have to be able to get to it with either hand, your primary hand or your non-dominant hand, depending on the situation. And then the second category is a deep concealment or hideaway type gun. Now that deep concealment gun is going to require a little creativity on your part in order to be able to carry it, but still be able to get at it. And of course, getting at it is going to be a little more complicated than it would be for your immediate access backup. Now when it comes to the immediate access gun, I would recommend carrying it on your off side. So whether you're carrying inside the waistband or outside the waistband, just put it on your non-dominant side. So if you're right-handed, just put the gun on your left side, which means you'll have to get a left-handed holster for that, either way, inside the waistband, outside the waistband, whichever it's going to be. And then everybody goes, well, that's where my spare ammo would go. Well, you can move that spare ammo around for the ammo for the primary gun. And that's another reason why you should have your immediate access gun should be taking the same ammunition and even the same magazines as your primary gun. So if you're, say, let's talk Glocks real quick. If you have your primary gun's a Glock 19 or a Glock 17, something of that size, and you're carrying, say, a Glock 26, which is the subcompact version, but still double stack, you can use your Glock 19 magazines in your Glock 26 because it's a longer mag, but it still fits in the gun and works. So that magazine interchangeability is great, which means you're already carrying spare ammo in the form of that backup gun, and it's compatible with the magazine or magazines you are carrying for your primary gun. Now here you see a good example on how to carry two guns of basically the same size. And this is with 1911s. And keep in mind that the offside gun I show you, it doesn't have a holster. This is strictly for illustrative purposes. Do not carry a gun actually just tucked into your waistband. That's not a good idea. Use a holster. But unfortunately I don't have a left-hand 1911 holster. But I wanted to show you just how you can carry two similar sized guns. And as you can see, it works out actually quite well, and it's comfortable. Now you do have to size your pants and your belt to accommodate both guns, so you're going to have proper wardrobe selection so that this works for you, but it definitely can be done. Now another good way to consider carrying two guns, especially of similar size, is to go with a horizontal shoulder holster. As you can see here, it actually works quite well. And especially if you want to carry larger guns, it's a really good way to carry them. Now make sure that they are of similar size because you want the weights pretty much identical. That way the holster balances itself out. And it's especially a good idea if you're carrying revolvers. Now, another place you can put your primary access gun is in a pocket. And make sure you're using a pocket holster as I'm demonstrating there. And yeah, it's going to be a pretty small gun, even though I'm advocating for a larger gun as a backup if possible. It's going to be a smaller gun, but it's really easy to get to, and you can have your hand on it and not look out of place, just have your hand in your pocket, but you still have your hand on a gun ready to go if things go south before you can get to your primary gun. And there's all sorts of possibilities. Now, the only downside to the pocket carry, in my opinion, is getting to it with your non-dominant hand. And you're going to have to practice getting it, and it's going to be awkward. You're going to have to practice getting that backup gun out of that pocket, which is probably going to be on your dominant side. The other way is to put the backup gun on your non-dominant side, in your front pocket on your non-dominant side, and just be aware that you're going to draw that with your non-dominant hand and probably be shooting it. So you need to be proficient. Talks to being proficient with your non-dominant hand as well. However, practice getting to it with your dominant hand. For some reason, if your non-dominant hand is out of the fight, then you're going to have to get it out of there, and it's going to be very awkward. So do practice trying to get that gun out of there. Yep. Now, for you folks that are appendix carriers, I'm not going to go into this in detail. You're going to have to figure out how you want another gun pointed at your generative organs and at your femoral artery, and figure that out. Now, whatever method you're carrying your primary gun, do not carry, under any circumstance, your backup gun in what's called an SOB, or a small of the back holster, because that goes right up against your spine. And if for some reason you take a fall, there's a really good chance you're going to break your back. You could be paralyzed permanently from the waist down, essentially. And I don't think you want that, just for the sake of carrying a backup gun. So no small of the back holsters, please. Now, when we get to the deep concealment guns, we have a different set of criteria. And places you can put these, just use your creativity. You can put them like in a shirt pocket, especially if like you're a uniformed officer. You can put it in the pocket on your duty shirt, something like that. You can put it in a coat pocket, or you can put it in a vest or vest pocket. There's also like dedicated vests that have holsters built into them. Now for pocket carry, and we talked sort of about doing the front pocket carry for your immediate access, but that also kind of goes a little bit towards deeper concealment. But by all means, make sure that you have the gun secured in a proper pocket holster, or the garment you're using is designed to carry a gun. So, because you don't want the gun going off accidentally, and plus you want it not to move around. It needs to be in exactly the spot you expect it to be when you try to access it. And nowadays there are these base layer shirts that have a built-in holster, and that's a good way to carry the gun. It could be a little bulgy, so depending on wardrobe choice and whatnot. Also a really good choice for uniformed officers, in my opinion, because it'll be down underneath everything. So if for some reason your vest is off you and all that stuff, you can still get to it Just go in through, just pull the buttons off your shirt, and of your primary shirt, your uniform shirt, your blouse, and then go in there and access the gun that way. And let's talk about ankle holsters for just a second. Yeah, that's a form of deep concealment. I do not think of this in terms of an immediate access gun. Ankle holsters basically are a difficult proposition. You're going to need time to get to them. It's a very obvious draw because you're bending way down, and you got to splay your legs a little bit to get access to it. If you want to see how to get to use an ankle holster, Masoud Ayoub has a terrific video. I'll link to that down in the description. You can go watch that. He shows you all about how to do ankle holsters, but you'll see how problematic they are. Hey, what are you carrying for a backup gun? What do you like for a backup gun? We'd love to hear about it. Go down in the comments there. Let us know your opinions on backup guns. Maybe you agree with what I'm saying, maybe you don't. Doesn't matter. Love to hear from you. I do try to read as many of the comments as I can, so you're not just whistling in the wind on there. I do see them, and I take them to heart, and I try to reply to as many as possible as well. Then, of course, there are the holsters which basically go inside your pants, the front of your pants. And there are brands out there, I think maybe Thunderwear was one or something. I don't know if they're still in business or not. But it was essentially a holster that would go right down in front of your fly, essentially, and suspend the gun there. I don't know how comfortable that would be, and I certainly don't know if I would want to have to run after somebody with a gun there. So you might want to really double think that. But it's a place to put a gun, and it's sort of a deep concealment kind of thing. But if you're carrying appendix, I don't know how that system would work out with your appendix, your primary gun in the appendix position. I think it would get too crowded. So, just it's out there. If you want to try it, do it up. Just be really careful to begin with. Make sure it's going to work for you before you decide to use it, and try it in all modes. I mean, fall down, roll around on the ground, try to run, sit in your car, do everything that you have to do, and see if that's going to work for you. Frankly, I have my doubts as to how good it works, but maybe it works great. I mean, if you have one and you like it, let us know down in the comments there. All right, I promised you by the end of the video, and here we are, I would let you know what my opinion is on what the best overall backup gun is. In my opinion, it's a small size, what they used to call subcompact, now they're calling them micros, but little 9mm like this. And I keep trotting out this Glock 26 because I have it to show you, but any of the ones in this category would be fine. And they're all the major manufacturers, SIG, Ruger, Springfield, who else? Smith & Wesson, everybody, FN, you name it, and they've got a gun in this category because it's one of the hottest segments there is in the gun market right now. But it's just a super alternative. I mean, it's going to operate the same probably as your primary gun. It is small enough to conceal quite well. It carries just marvelously. It just disappears under almost all clothing. And on top of that, it's got reasonable capacity. 11 rounds, or some of these even have 12, 13 rounds, whatever it might be. That's a lot better than 4, 5, 6, 7, something like that. And they're reliable, unlike super compact 1911s, as I mentioned. So I can't really say enough about this category of gun. And unless you're talking a super deep hideout, and it's still possible to put this really deep, put it somewhere where it's hard to find, and you can get to it though in an emergency. So even then, in that scenario, it still could fit the bill for you. But ultimately, I think this is probably the best backup gun, other than duplicating your primary gun. Best backup gun in the world is something like this Glock 26. Well, there you go. That's my opinion on backup guns, whether you agree or disagree. And of course, feel free to go down in the comments, as I said, and let me know one way or the other. Thank you for spending your valuable time here with us at the LocaCarnivore today. We truly appreciate it. And remember one thing, Han shot first, for Pete's sakes. Thanks for watching.